Hello,
Frode?
I can hear you.
Yes. There we go.
There you are.
All right. I don't have on hand, let's see if I can find them, the emails of the other members. So I didn't email them other than Mark. But if you have those,
That's okay. It's a Sunday and it's a bit. I sent a message to Raphael saying if he had a chance to join us, but we can just have an initial dialogue. That should be fine.
okay. Sounds good.
So, the key thing you're talking about is widening the community and making it more active. Is that right?
Yes. So right, and that would be the first thing I want to touch on. What would be the purpose of this, right? Because there's it's easy to imagine there's some cross purposes. There's a lot of different ways to think of it, right? Like one of them could be to market the book. One could be to market the products. One could be to create a safe space for people to talk about this stuff, or just create more of an audience and formalize that audience. So I didn't want to jump the gun on any of that until that was kind of brought to the surface.
What would you want it to become? What do you want to see?
Thanks for asking. I'd like it to be sort of like our open hours, office hours, right? So here's a loose thread, but people are adding in these links and here's different stuff to check out. The actual product of the newsletter, kind of imagine it from the angle of what would I want someone to get out of it, and that would be kind of like a present, nothing that feels burdensome, right? So nothing that feels like I don't even know where this argument or the frame of this is happening, and I have to understand all of that stuff before I can even partake in this, right? So something for a general audience in that sense. And I think that using pieces of the created content from the books are a really good match. Of you can imagine a newsletter having sort of like sections, and one being maybe like interesting finds this week, another being a throwback. Here's a quote or snippet or something that we're discussing that comes from the book, or even not even necessarily in the book, but maybe something that someone else wrote. I mean, like in working on a piece for the Futures of Text, I have so much material that is kind of difficult to figure out. Hey, Mark, figure out what to use, and some of the material even throws back to articles that other people have written called the Futures of Text. Totally before Future of Text. So there's even a possibility for like some of that, or maybe something William Zisner said or Lewis Mumford. So snippet of like outside social proof, snippet of here's what's going on this week, or here's something you may not have come across, and then something else that I haven't imagined yet, and then probably like a roundup, or like this is where to find where the conversation's going this week, which could be like the YouTube video, it could be the Futures of Text site, etc.
So, my answer to that is I'm not so sure.
Okay.
The reason is, this will be, obviously, as you know, the 10th annual Future of Tech Symposium, which is something I'm very happy with. The chain, some of them had over 200 people, some of them had 20. It's been very widely different sizes, but the thing of trying to get people to talk about text is really, 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 really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard, right? And on one hand, in California, with some of the brightest minds of the valley there, even what's his name? Brett Victor was there in the audience. He did a secret presentation, unrecorded. Adam Chire was there in the
Wow,
audience.
which one? Which
Oh,
which symposium?
I can't, 2016 roughly, but it wasn't recorded because he was showing stuff he wasn't really allowed to show publicly that he'd done earlier at Apple. Stuff we've all seen elsewhere,
Yeah.
how to change something. It was really neat. It was pleasant. And so Adam Chire was there, and it was really good. But then we had a breakout session, and one of the groups, I remember, we just decided, okay, this group's going to talk about links. Really brilliant people there, and I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I had to say, okay, why don't we start with implicit links, explicit links, link types? Why don't we talk about addressing? All these things. And they're like, And that really surprised me. And on the other side of it, when I was teaching at LCC for a year, the most incredibly beautiful students you could ever imagine. But anyway, that's a whole hour's worth of talk. We had the future of text there, and they had some MTV person come in that did a huge thing about. But I did actually tell the head of the university or the college, we're going to have Windsurf. We're going to have the guys who bought Siri for Apple. Frank Meehan was there. We're going to have Ted Nelson invented the term hypertext. Plus, plus, plus. Tom Standage, deputy editor of The Economist. And they're like, yeah, whatever. So I told the people, the whatever maintenance type people, brilliant people, we need more chairs. We need more chairs. And I told my students, all 200 of them, I said, you're welcome to come, but you have to be there all day. Be completely quiet. If you have a question, you have a question, but you may not come in and out. If you don't want to be there, don't show up. It's fine. You don't have to be there at all. Go do whatever else. It was completely overcrowded, brilliant questions, engaged students. So the whole thing about finding an audience is really weird. These were general communications advertising students. But just to
Okay.
give one further layer of my slight concern is at one of the future of texts, there were some people who really pushed it completely away from text and into images,
Hmm.
right? And it's just, okay, my background, I'm a photographer. I studied at the Chelsea School of Art. I get it, it's important, but there is so little work on this. Can we please have this space just be for text?
Okay. Well, this is
So,
great. So what are you looking for? What do you want out of this?
well, one more story,
Okay.
and that is we were in Croatia, a couple of us, random California types plus other people. It was really, really wonderful. Kind of saved the world through making tech better type of a thing. Had a week, was super nice. But it was so leftist. No one was the leader, even though the leader wasn't even the leader, kind of a thing. And everybody was like, well, what do you want? What do you want? And it became so mushy. Nothing came of it other than, some friendships that I've lost it. So the thing that I want out of my life now is two things. One, I absolutely desperately want visual meta to be implemented and be normal. It is such a boring detail, but without it, so much other
Hmm.
stuff cannot happen. That's half of my life. The other half of it, I think we need to really, really curate, not people, because anybody's welcome, but really, really curate the messaging on how we invite people in. So they really need to understand this is about text, and not text for its well, actually, it's on text for its own sake too. If someone wants to talk about digital poetry, fine, we'll have a session on that. But it cannot be. I mean, I love California. I'm sure, Alan, you spent quality time sitting in Silicon Valley, the gardens with coffee, saving the world too, right?
I have feelings about California.
Yeah, it's like Kepler's bookstore, sitting there. And, the first time I was there, these ladies, roughly my mother's age, obviously younger than she is now, then anyway, talking about this and that amazing stuff. And just like, wow, this is just intellectual heaven. But
Yeah.
so many of these discussions just become nothing.
Yeah.
So that's why it's
Okay.
so
This is
important to
great.
separate. So we have to separate the nothing discussions are fine. They broaden mind. The book is a nothing discussion in that sense. It's a nothing discussion about text. We're not building
Right.
anything.
Right.
Then there's that let's build something. But it's just one of the legacy of Doug is his column of human side and tool side. I think for the people today, it's been really destructive because it becomes an either or for many people. so many people say, well, this is a human problem, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, yes, but you're actually saying it over Zoom, right? Technology is a part of this. And then, oh, no, you can't do a program and solve everything. It's crazy. So even though I'm saying we need to dream and go crazy and to implement, so I'm being guilty of this myself. To have discussions like we've had, especially the last few months, like on Friday, I said I wanted this folding PDF thing, and you were holding back a little bit because I think you were a couple of steps ahead of me. Because as I realized at the very end of that meeting, even though we had all these inventions, what we actually talked about self-citation, just give it a DOI for itself and we're done. Actually, it's done, it's fixed. But the point was, in our community, a solution to something can happen through discussions going all over the place. So I'm just going to open a window.
Okay. Hey, Mark. Oh, you're muted.
Why did you have to tell him that?
Damn, I found the unmute button again.
Side note, it is a pleasure to be talking just with you too, and maybe we can have a more focused outcome from that. I like everything that you just said, Frode. You know, especially well, implementing visual meta for sure, but I know you've been living with that a lot longer than I have. I want to see that, you know, but I'm sure it's way more of a driving force for you. But then the second point, curating the message on how we invite people in is a really interesting way to phrase that. I like that. And I feel like your stories connect to that. And that's something that I definitely agree with. So to replay, you know, when you said that you had the group breakouts and then you had all these smart people and the issue is links, and then suddenly there's silence, right? Because yeah, I mean, to be honest, the future of text is a very unusual way to frame, when you first hear it, unusual way to frame the problem. It sounds inviting at first, but then it's like, oh, well, is this the future of breathing? You know, like how do you approach it to make an actual substantial outline, right? You have to define what text is first, and then the minute you start doing that, it becomes language or just basic communication and movement, you know? Okay, so then you have to cut that off and shard that away for now. Okay, by text we mean this. The other extreme is like, no, we mean PDFs, right? I mean, then when you get to PDFs, people are like, I'd rather just read my HTML. See what I mean? Like, so I think there's a great effort to say, this is how we're thinking about it. These are the lenses we have on. We want to have all these, we don't have answers, or we, you know, but these are the boundary conditions, sort of the glasses that we have on to look at these things. This is what we mean when we say text.
Well, yes and no. As I've grown older, I'm 53 now. Things change.
Youngster.
Huh?
Youngster.
Whatever, Mr. 54. Right. So the thing that I have to accept, of course, I'm calmer and lots of changes and all of that, but one of the things I've also come to accept that there's a lot of stupid people out there. And my cultural and ethical background doesn't actually allow me to really think that, but I have to accept it. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the kind of people you walk into a shop and they stop in the doorway. Right? Do you not
Welcome to New York.
People? Yeah, I love New York, but yeah. But then again, since you mentioned New York, the other side of New York, that is the best of humanity, standing, waiting for a red light, talking to the person next to you about something for 2 seconds, and then just keep walking. It's amazing. Yeah. Nothing like it, right?
Yeah.
So it has the best and the worst. But
yep.
So the thing is, you know, my brother, he's gay, and he had this whole coming out thing. The kind of nerd that I am, and I don't know if you guys can identify with this, we don't have the same kind, I don't have the same kind of coming out, right? But to accept that I think this area is really, really important, and it's not stamp collection, it's not just video games, it is text. It's something that, most people in the whole world doesn't give a monkeys about it, even though they read and write all day. So to get a real engagement, and that's why I've never highlighted Vint Cerf or any of these. Oh, he's a bit famous, let's go. No, it has to be, it's the future of text. By the way, these people will be here.
I
Right?
see.
Yeah. So
Yes.
to get a broader dialogue with people, and this is not about intelligence as such. I don't know what that is, but the intelligence you just exhibited, which you always do, but specifically now when you said, okay, so we text with this, we put that to a side, that kind of, let's not even call it analysis, let's just call it engagement, is quite rare, right? It's much easier to accept something or reject it. Not
Okay,
to
this is
hang on, right? So if we can manage to build a community around, hang on, that doesn't feel right. Can we do, like you talked, that will be the most amazing thing, because otherwise I'm concerned, like Nest Labs and Laura's group is fantastic. There are all these tools for thought communities, which are fantastic. I don't want to compete with them. But if we can really focus on the thing we're doing, get the people who are really engaged with it, that will be heavenly.
okay. This is fantastic. I'm going to throw a couple of other questions in to narrow down the meaning then. Focusing on how to make text fascinating, right? Or feel free to rephrase that, but that's what I hooked on. And to explore what examples of that would be, I'll give you one example, and you tell me whether if it's what you mean. Okay, so I'm just pulling something out of the hat. From Surfaces and Essences. He talks at the beginning about, or he sort of anchors this book around the idea of Sigmas. And it's this weird word that most of us have never come across before. I know I hadn't. And a Sigma, a Zeugma, basically is a little switch in a sentence that is illogical. Right? So you will enjoy this Sigma as much as a piece of chocolate or music. Right? Meaning that you can't enjoy chocolate or music the same way, and yet still it's acceptable, right? So logically it falls apart, but as far as a method of communication, it's totally fine, right?
It's so funny, you're frozen right now, so you look like a puppet. Oh, you're back.
Ah, dang.
Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting perspective. It'll take a while to digest.
I bring that up as if your goal is to make text, and by that, your own heavy laden meaning of text, this is an example of a word that is fascinating. Does that fit with your definition of making text fascinating, or is that a diversion?
I'm not sorry, Mark, I see your hand, but it's okay if I. Okay, thanks. So I'm not sure about making text fascinating, but maybe that is exactly what we need to do now, because I've spent an inordinate amount of family money building Reader and Author, and there are many things in there that you can't do anywhere else. I'm happy, of course. It's only a tenth of what I want to build, and there is other software out there now, finally, that can do amazing things like Notion and that kind of stuff. It's amazing. I think it's really, really important. My advertising professor, when I studied in Syracuse, just up the road from New York, I drove back and forth a few times, so I'm allowed to say up the road. He said, don't tell them, show them, again and again and again. And that's why I did the software. Don't tell them, show them. Don't talk about the future of text generally. Sit down, read in Reader. Oh my gosh, I can click here. Oh my God, I can do that. That's really important to me. But right now, I think we are at a stage where what you're saying is right. We can demonstrate a few things with Visual Meta. We can demonstrate some with my software and people related to us software. But we do need to scream. I mean, Vint Cerf sent an email to Tim Cook on my behalf this week. And I had two quotes from Tim himself saying the planet can't wait was one. And then I found just before sending in a research article, I think it came up in the forum, on how the fact that we have so many articles published in academia means people read less. They stay to the canonical ones. It's a mess, right?
Right.
And then we have link rot, all these things. So I put that in there and I said, if we don't make our information interactive, we're doomed, right? Of course, Tim Cook doesn't have the space to deal with this right now.
Right.
But I hope that the kind of poetic, emotional message would at least hand it off to some kind of a deputy.
Okay. So, Mark, go ahead. I'll try and
Just a couple of quick things. I was picking up something that really chimed listening to Frode and said about, well, we need to curate this stuff. I think, well, this doesn't surprise me. That's his incredibly generous nature at heart in terms of, let's spread this widely. And I was in a Tinderbox meetup at the weekend. I do weekly, and someone was talking about this book about great mental models, and it's all fine. In fact, I looked at the book and I thought, I read through. I thought, yep, nothing new here, and I thought that's a bit churlish. But I thought, yeah, but I've been working in this space for a while. And somebody beat me to it, saying, but where are the non-Western models? So part of the openness and this thing is this curating is to make a place where people come and say, I have a thought or I have a view on this, where it isn't a case you've got to be this tall to get on the ride. Because we sit here often enough.
Important, Mark. Can I?
Yeah, sorry.
No. When you're done, I'm going to springboard like mad off what you just said.
but it's just this thing of because we often sit here with really genuine intent. So, well, where are the voices we're not hearing? And I don't know. And I suspect partly it's because other forms of thought have either become ethnic tropes or they've become consigned to non-English literature.
Well, see, this is where we go into the broader issue of tools for thought and education. So I thank you again for this, Alan.
Oh, great.
Again, the bit I read about now was still with the Romans. I read slowly and I read about 20 books at the same time. Not very organized.
Same.
Right. But the thing is, I get so mad at how literacy is kept from the people. I've written articles on how we need to arm people. We need to arm the citizen. And at this point, we need to arm everyone, because if you have an ignorant enemy, that is worse now. I am a lefty in most areas, and I think that an ignorant Republican is worse than one who has argument I can have a discussion with.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to have a better life, he needs to.
And the reverse is true. I mean, lest we get too binary, and not to take a side, but I mean,
of course. But I'm saying,
I'm just expanding the thought.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the point. So when it comes to the non-Western world view, I forwarded to you guys an invitation to go to some literature thing, AWLL or something.
When is it?
Organizer, his name is Terry something, but he's actually in a Japanese university. So that's how we got in touch with him.
Must have missed that.
It was, it's really annoying sending group emails. They don't always end up in the right.
I did get it, but
I honestly, during the work week, I don't even check my personal email because I'm just anyway. But I'll find it. Continue.
Yeah, no. The point is that he is a Terry Joyce. I'll just forward to you guys now.
I found it. I think. Great.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
It's
So
October 20. Oh, cool. Great. Okay.
But despite the fact that I grew up in Singapore and my wife is half Japanese and we live partly in Japan, networking there has been really, really difficult, but we are trying. But okay, so back to my really big point here, and that is, I think that academia today is, with all due respect, Mark, it's targeted towards the kind of minds that Mark can deal with. Right? You don't love doing BibTech, you don't love doing the references, but someone of my mindset we have such a hard time doing it. When I did my IQ test 9 years ago, or 10 years ago, whatever, I got good ratings and stuff, except for the ones that were secretarial work. I cannot do proofreading, can't even check if phone numbers are formatted correctly. I got 10 or 20% of those. Different minds, but the fact that it has to be this format and has to be this citation style, I find it, and also doing a PhD, it's 90% tabulation stuff, reading and literally just putting things on a table. There's not that much intellect there. So that was a bit of a shock, but I'm really glad for the community and for my software, Frode Hegland PhD, it'll look, word process for academic, it'll look nice, but in terms of intellectual rigor? Hardly any. So this issue of having the other worldview, if we don't open up to other people to come out of the closet and say, I'm actually quite nerdy. I know people jokingly say nerdy now, but look at the revolution we had. First, it was the sexual revolution. If someone's gay now, generally people don't care, right? We've had a few of those revolutions lately. If we don't have one who's saying, I give a monkeys about what's going on with the world, I actually want to learn stuff. I expect I'm wrong, but please give me tools that I understand are as difficult to learn as a painter with a paintbrush. I don't expect sit down in Word and do that. That level of literacy, of getting a deeper literacy, or raising the standard, whatever.
Yes. Okay. A couple of comments. One, first off, I love the end game of visual meta, and that's why I'm on board. I really do think that it should be packaged with Apple, and not even thinking of it as a startup in a sense, but rather thinking of it, this is the baseline. This needs to be the baseline. I'm all for that. And the tools for thought sort of revolution that's going on right now, a comment on that is agreed. There's a lot of excitement, but it also feels like a shallow kind of understanding. I think the three of us have been pursuing these things in our own ways for decades. I know I have, in my own haphazard drunkard's walk kind of way. So I don't have necessarily a formal, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I've read enough stuff that I've thought about it in enough ways that I feel like I can come at things in this kind of like, well, I can only compare it to, if you go to a talk about, pick your analytical philosopher, you'll come away with some fascinating nuggets, but it's totally different than when you actually have to read the text and get graded on your understanding of it. Then it becomes a terrifying thing, right? You realize that you thought you understood it, but you can't defend it. So, right. And there's a degree of this future of text where it feels like you have to be inundated with not just know of Douglas Engelbart or whatnot, but you have to.
I just realized you're kind of putting me in the same box as those horrible academics, and I think you're absolutely right.
That's what I'm saying. There is a kind of a downside to the nuances of what you're talking about. You almost have to go through several self-revelations before you can get to a place where it goes, yeah, this is the next necessary step, or these are the kinds of steps that I'm looking for. This may just be one of them, Anyway, I love the deeper literacy idea though. And if you don't mind, I'll take it. Why I brought up the newsletter idea is because I was actually thinking about starting my own newsletter as almost just a personal exercise. And the concept of it, I'm just going to run it by you because it may inspire some ideas here or not. But what was motivating it is similar to what you were saying, that I think that there's a real break in how much knowledge is available and how we seem to know less. And a lot of that has to do with the categorization of this knowledge, the fact that there can be 12 different words for roughly the same thing. And so I wanted to do a newsletter that was almost analogical or relying on analogy. And how that would work is that there would be, for each newsletter, sort of like 3 things that seemed totally unrelated, right? Like the manganese line, coral reefs, and the rainbow shrimp. And then through a process of discussing them and bringing up other things, you sort of figure out how, these are all sort of related in a way, even if it's just in this one person's mind. And then in the next newsletter, you may bring up the same 3 objects, but then totally different ways that they relate. And so you start to, over time, get this sense of, first off, you experience the sticking power that comes with analogy. And then secondly, you start to say, this isn't just a thing. I can't just put shrimp now as a ocean creature, because it is sort of also a historical moment. My categories are breaking down, so that's what I wanted to explore in a newsletter format. And I feel like it has the same goal in the sense of urging fascination and a kind of a deeper literacy. saying that, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think you see, that intrigues me because I'm very much, although people, I mean, my age, gender, and accent perhaps lead people astray, but I'm very much a wide thinker, which is a social abnormality. And it's nothing to do with academia or something. It is not the norm. Most people want to put their hands around my stuff and get on with it and say, and don't mislead me with other stuff. And what you're driving at is something much more interesting. And it gets back to this thing of saying a sort of thing that it's just raising your horizons. Someone saying it's part, even at the minorest level, it's accepting there are other things out there that I don't know that probably relate to what I'm interested in. And even if you do nothing more than just accept the fact that there may be outside your horizon something of interest to engage with, and perhaps have the courage to let other people deal with the things that you don't understand and give it to you in forms that you do understand, which is another thing our non-collaborative sort of general nature doesn't do at the moment. Then I think that's tremendously powerful. I've been fascinated watching my wife, since she's retired, has started doing a lot of drawing. And one of it's really funny, having said years, and what's all this social media stuff about? It's now on Instagram all day because she does all her artwork. Courses are also done through this. But I was fascinated. She was showing me something where they do a word every day, and everyone on the course draws a picture. And it's exactly what you said. You sort of think,
wild.
Gosh, yeah, where did they get? I mean, and leave aside that some are really good and some are bloody awful, but none of it, we don't, we're of differing skills. What's really fascinating to me when I see it is just the abstraction, what people have taken from that term, and often as only quite tangentially, even in the artwork, put that in there. But that really reinforces what you just said. That
you're right. Thank you.
If we only look within our own purview, and insist that we police the boundaries. So if you want to talk to me, you have to use this language. You have to use this terminology. I don't get that. I never have, and I don't think I ever will. I mean, I understand why it happens. I just don't think it's necessary.
One last little thing with that, and why I mentioned it at all, Frode, and then I'll stop. But that goes back to what I feel like is one of the central problems in the space that you're dealing with is chicken and the egg. And so a lot of people out there are saying, here's the tools to write with, but you don't ever see anything that you can read this way. You can't see the product of it.
Yeah.
And so the flip side is, well, maybe we start with things that you read. And once you see the value of reading it in this way, then it makes it easier to write that way. And I'm kind of like trying out the reading side, but go ahead.
Okay. So many things. First of all, hugely insulting what you said, and I'm very glad we have the cushion for that to be a good thing in the community.
What did I say that was insulting?
No, the whole thing about there is a barrier for people to enter this community.
Oh, yeah.
I find it incredibly hurtful because it is correct. Okay, and I'm very grateful it comes from you. And the thing is, I have a friend who, I'm going to pause for a second here. So the bit that I didn't want was someone's identity. But anyway, the point was, I do feel that I'm elitist in the sense that we should strive to be better. That's baseline. However, it has to be completely open to enter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that none of us are wise enough to know the future of text. So for us to exclude people is awful.
Mm-hmm.
So to find that balance is really, really hard. And when I did do my little bit of teaching, whenever I imposed rigor on the students, they loved it. Whenever I imposed morality on the students, they loved it. Right? So 2 quick examples that are so relevant to your 3-piece newsletter, maybe. One was year 1 students. I want you to take this kind of a picture, give it back to me, A4, 3 pictures, black and white. If they give me 4 pictures, I said you failed. I asked for 3. Why did I ask for 3? I don't want to edit more. Give me 3. And their faces, they were so happy because it was clear. Art schools aren't often clear. Other half of it, I was up normally in an hour before anyone else. Talked to one of the cleaners, and she said, on our floor, because of such and such, it's much harder work for her now. So I said, I'll talk to the students. So I talked to the students and I said, look, I talked to someone important for your future who's extremely disappointed. You're cleaner. And only one person out of 200 students tittered a little bit. And I said, if you cannot take care of your workspace, how can you take care of anything else in your life? If you don't take responsibility for that and leave it for someone else coming in here, minimum wage. And to see their faces like, I'm allowed to have a moral side to what I do in university, thank you, right? Anyway, so in terms of the inclusivity, back to the three things. I think that is hugely ambitious. If you manage to do it, there's definitely a book in there, no question, a multimedia book or something. It would be amazing. I think also Mark's point about the word a week or whatever a week, if we can give people an exercise that is hugely inclusive, like a thought a week, because the thing is with a book, 500 or 1,000 words or whatever, some people's minds fit that. Some people sent me a single image for the book, as you know. If we can have a newsletter that stimulates people in the right way, they learn some tidbits about connections, opens their minds a bit, but there is actually a thing they can do to be included in a community.
Okay. Do you mind a little digression based off of what you just said?
I would love a digression based off.
Okay. And this may spark something actually useful, but it's really funny, the exercise. But I wound up found myself sort of writing a story the other day. Didn't resolve, but the concept was we wound up in a world where words were NFTs, and essentially words were on the chain, and it was a story of like, how did we get here, and how does that even work? Well, here's how it works. Of course, words are free, right? Creation is a free word, right? But if I used creation in a slightly different way, I have a signature on it, right? So for me, creation actually has this embedded context of previous words. So for me, recreation was the word. For me, there's a hint of recreation and not just play, right? So, and that leads to this other hint. And so the money comes in when you can take a normal word and sort of decompose it and find all its shades of meaning. Then you can tag yourself as, I own that shade of meaning, that context, and that becomes art, right? So
that is art.
That, yes, and yeah, and so then it gets really weird, because you have people making books or articles, and every word that's being used is owned, and so there is this high level of embedded context that you then have to sort of break open every single word. And I actually wound up writing almost a genealogy of one particular example that got ridiculous, So my point is that maybe there could be something fun in an exercise of word decomposition, and in the sense of like, even if you take the word convention, right? You look
That's
at
a great example.
Thesaurus, yeah, you've got convention, conventional, an event, but then you break it down to vention and con. Okay, so convention is now related to invention or provention.
Okay. Can I jump in?
Go. Okay,
this is very, very important. What you're talking about now, it's not a digression. It is the thing. So on the radio the other day, they talked about me as an author. I'm often referred to what literature inspired me. It is so much more that inspired me than literature.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bit of. So I wanted to talk to you guys about that, specifically you, Mark, because of your understanding of that. One thing I would love to have for the authors in the book is their influences, right? Be it religion, music, whatever influenced them. And the reason I think really goes on to the thing you're talking about, because if you read a piece of poetry and you are then able to select that phraseology you're alluding to, or that word or whatever, and then choose instantly to see that author's influences in terms of music, because maybe something is in your head and you see that that person obviously liked Hamilton. That instantly means something different to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So to embed more of the author in a way, okay, visual meta. Why don't we have a bigger section of who the fuck I am, if you pardon my language? Sorry.
So a challenge in what you said is interesting, because I also share some stories. So part of my experience with English education was that the guy who was supposed to teach us English was not an early riser and something of a drunk, it appeared. But so most of our English lessons, which at the time were so early in the morning, so he would turn up somewhat the worst way, but he would sit and read to us, mainly from Evelyn Waugh or P.G. Wodehouse. And actually what it left me with was a feel for the cadence and the vocabulary in English language. Can I describe it to you in terms of tense and gerunds or something? No, I cannot. I still feel slightly embarrassed to this day that I feel I have a facility with the language, but I can't explain it in nuts and bolts terms. But I found this when one of the ways that I put this to use was with some of my fellow students. I'd say, look, if you want someone to just read it for sort of sense and flow, I'm very happy to do this. And I can tell you in advance, I won't necessarily be able to give you a sort of point blow by blow account, but I can tell you, sometimes just moving the phrases around in the sentence, it'll just flow, and it's like having an ear for the run of the music, I guess. It comes back to me because when Fred rightly said, well, where are your influences? I thought, well, I don't really know. I mean, not directly. I could say, okay, so because it's read. I mean, I didn't read a lot. Well, I read a lot when I was younger, but I mean, I didn't study English because I'm left-handed. I have Asperger's. I struggled with doing basically English and history, although they're what I really enjoyed. So I read sciences because it's kind of easier and it's more trammeled. But it wasn't till I went back. When I was at sea in my 20s, and in the few spare hours of the day I had, I thought, right, sod this. I'm going to read, some of the canon. So I basically ripped through most of my sort of choice. My list of choice was mainly the Penguin classics because that's what I could get, and they weren't expensive. But it was fascinating reading it because it also reinforced my antipathy of the Stalinist theory of art, which is it's good because I say it's good, and I've always said bollocks to that. I mean, I mean, the point is, if somebody else likes it, I don't have to, and I don't object to them liking it. No. I only object to somebody telling me I have to like it because they like it. If you can explain to me why I might like it, that's fine. And this to me gets to the heart of openness and inclusivity, which is saying, look, you just turn up, have an idea, and to the people in the room, don't be a dick. Just because it's something you don't recognize doesn't mean it's inherently bad. And the question you should ask yourself as a listener is, where does this fit in an open-minded sense? So if it's something you don't recognize, rather than say, bah, horrid, go away, you're an unbeliever, you must stand outside, and say, well, that's interesting, where does that fit? And if it doesn't fit on the shelf, maybe we need to squeeze some space and put that in and start to think how the idea relates. And this I think is very important, because one of the things I'm really mulling on at the moment is this thing of writing for other people. Having never had a day's training in all the stuff I now do, and learned so much by the kindness of strangers, I've for a long time been just putting stuff out there for other people, in essence, writing documentation. I could call it something fancier, but no, it's sort of free to stick on the line. Do it for other people. And the inherent challenge in that I've realized is it's, every day is a working day, because as hard as I try, someone will step out of the darkness and say, it doesn't make sense. And you think, holy crap, I thought I'd just done it. But you find you've missed a vocabulary, missed something. So again, this sense of leaving space for new things to come in echoes heavily for me.
I think that's interesting, because to narrow it back. So Edgar is learning reading and writing and all of that stuff, but he has access to thousands of animated things and whatever on his iPad that he is allowed to watch every once in a while. And what does that mean? He gets a vocabulary that's much broader than any of us, when we grew up, had access to. So we do have a little bit of that reading to us through these devices. Of course, we're scared about social media. That's another discussion. But in terms of giving people access to enter a community through this kind of a newsletter, is very, very interesting and difficult because we can end up getting a lot of shit. And in one way, I don't mind that, but in another way, I mind it because that means that other people will join it based on that and not enter.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But
That's
have we? I mean, I don't recall, and obviously I'm.
no, but Mark,
late
it's
to the party
already
with this.
happened because the book, volume 1, some of the reviews say there wasn't that much editing. Some of it doesn't stand up with the rest. And my
Well,
argument is we don't know in 100 years what will actually stand up, but people judge
that
it.
falls in the "don't be a dick" category. I mean, I think I just leave it there and not invest too much effort in it because that's sort of right in their own context. They're sort of right, but
that's a difficult argument to have, you see, because that's assuming that everyone who picks up the Futures of Text book is approaching it in the sort of open-ended way that you're approaching it. I can't tell you how many times that I spend $30 on a book that looks so promising by its name and description, only open it up and find, am I actually going to dedicate all this time to get through this? Because the first 2 chapters are garbage. This is not what I wanted at all. I could have picked this up on Oprah or something. But that aside, I came into the meeting today. This is very helpful. I came into the meeting today with the thought that a newsletter would be along the lines of an afterthought to gain ground, to gain audience. And it sounds like that is the opposite of what you want, that you want something that is, when it's put out there, is really well considered and meaningful.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you're asking very interesting questions intelligently. So you're probably going to get answers all over the map. The only concerns I have is, opening up the community for absolutely anybody who's interested, but they got to be interested.
I like where you're coming from there, and I think the other point I was going to tag on there is we're all friends here, and I think we're all friends because we're all book people. We're all nerds, as you said, Frode. Like, and we don't get a coming out of the closet for the nerd party or something, but instilling. Some of what I've heard today sounds as if if there was a tool, be it a newsletter or an app or anything, that could make it lower the barrier of entry for people to fall in love with reading or with words or whatever it is the way we have, then that would be a great thing. And so what is that? Well, that's hard to define, but I think what we could say is that it's somehow anti-digital without being farmer, whatever those guys, Luddites. It's the stuff when you read Wodehouse or you hear Wodehouse and you go like, there's a flow there. I can't give it a name, but there's a thing, there's a logic that's tying it. Go ahead.
That is not where my head is at.
Okay.
Because I think such things, generally evangelism for reading and writing is quite strong.
Right.
It could be better, no question.
Well, and that's the whole question. Maybe it's being done as a tell and not show. Go ahead.
What I'm really concerned with is building 2 things at the same time. 1, more advanced tools for augmenting how we think when we write and how we think when we read. And building a desire for people to actually use these tools to get a deeper literacy. Because of my visual background, I'm a Photoshop guy. I can fly through Photoshop at speeds you can't do in other software. You want me to make you a professional video? It won't take long. You want me to produce a book? I actually did a book on Friday during dinner with guests. They thought I was in the bathroom a while, okay? It's going to be presented, it's going to be this size, it's going to be, you would not be able to tell it wasn't a photo book bought in whatever, okay? Because the tools are there and I've invested in it. Microsoft Word ain't it.
Right.
Okay, Preview and Adobe Reader ain't it. My own tools are not it either. They're a million times better than that, I would say, from my perspective. But I do expect that if we have an organized society doing it, me sitting at home and paying someone on the other side of the world to do programming, we can probably do a hell of a lot better than that. But that has to be together, the tools have to be developed and the passion to learn them have to be developed. Mark and I had a session this week where he was very kindly coming from a different perspective and learning author and making a mess of a few things. So we both learned from that, right? But it is I'm producing a new type of tool. Some of what I think is great. Some of it is rubbish. It goes against how it should be done. So have the community to because first of all, I'm an artist. My ego is very, very low. That's just the way it is for artists. Like if someone, I'm better now, but most of my life, if someone criticizes it, who am I? Doug Engelbart was an artist. It was only towards the end of his life I managed to, not only me, but we managed to persuade him, look, Doug, you've actually done something good, better than most people. Because he admitted to me that he also had the problem of if he said, we got to do this, people say, who the hell are you? That was Doug Engelbart. So how can the rest of us not have imposter syndrome?
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
So that balance of having a safe community where I can say, I made this thing, it's amazing. I talk like a 15-year-old. This is the best tool ever. And people look at it, sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's not. Other times, a week later, I realize it's useless. Right? But we got to have this encouragement of thinking new ways to deal with text. To be more interested in reading Chaucer, cool. But for someone to be able to zip through 200,000 articles on climate change in an afternoon, read some of them deeply, most of them superficially, go in and out like you're driving a high-speed F1 racing car around the circuit, using your entire body, your entire mind, be completely in it, coming out of that race and realize you went down the wrong track and go back. That is our goal in the core future of text. That also means having an artist complain about an ampersand design, absolutely appropriate. Having somebody with poetry, absolutely appropriate. A lot of these things are inspirations on the edges, no question. But it has to be that our literacy today is absolutely god-awful. I mean, I play Battlefield. Do you play Battlefield, guys? Or one of those modern shoot-em-ups?
No, what is that, a video game?
Yeah, it's a computer game. It's on PC. I play it on PlayStation. Almost photorealistic. You get your machine gun, you run down the road. There's an enemy there. You shoot them far away. Oh my God, it's raining. The whole weather changes. That's terrible. Oh, you see one of your teammates run out of tank. You jump in the tank, smash through a building, blow up the enemy base. The terrain is deformed, and the freaking tornado comes along and lifts us into the air, right? And blah, blah, blah forever and ever. Immersive, beautiful, fantastic. And we still live with Google Docs and Microsoft Word.
Okay, so now that a lot to say on the earlier parts, but addressing that specifically is another paradox, a threshold that makes this conversation, this topic, this framing difficult, right? Because on one hand, talking on the side of curation and better tools, you're almost digging deeper in the examples that we've seen. The source material is academic texts. It is in the stuffy world of this is how we've done things for 50 years and we're going to keep doing it this way. We just need to make it better.
Reading this is important too.
Yeah, yes. And then on the other side though is maybe the people that were wanting to talk about images we're trying to get here is that, like, what is text if not the father of all media, aside from speech? And now that we have digital, do we start to look at text as being irradiated into all other forms, like video games, like music, or is it a separate thing still? And so that makes it even more difficult to talk about the future of text, right? Because you have to have an opinion. Either I'm going to deal with words as words, these things that are, basically two-dimensional, or I'm going to say text is the thing that powers the logic of the video game.
As a pragmatist, I'd say leave the edges fuzzy. And if someone wants to go into bat on it, you sort of, then the fair question is to say, well, how does it relate to text?
Yeah, but okay, so
because I don't think it's so one of the things that plagues us at the moment, especially in the sort of current decade, is we've made everything terribly binary in a way that doesn't actually help us.
This isn't binary. This is kind of holding the ground for this. But so my tool Liquid, you can select text, keyboard shortcut, do billions of things with it, actually 300 things. One of the things you can do on a web page is actually select an image as well as text. Mm-hmm. And then 2 seconds later, you've done a Google reverse image search on that.
Okay.
So that's part of the story. and it has nothing to do with text. I used it when somebody posted a Hillary Clinton conspiracy nonsense on Facebook. And I instantly posted back with a screenshot that this picture of this car crash was actually on the other side of the world, unconnected. My friend then came back with, it's illustrative. Okay, so yes, any side of the political spectrum, you will have weird things.
Well, no, that's a really interesting thing that comes out of that, and this is another thing that I think it probably runs across most sort of Western style democratic things at the moment. We have, for whatever reason, become, politics has wormed its way into it, and it has some unfortunate consequences. So when you showed that person that picture, what you wanted them to think about was the magic, all the technical magic and the stuff that's happening in the picture. And someone said,
I just want to say, oh yeah, sorry, that story is bogus.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something we need to try and cleave away from. It's not that it's not important, but actually, the more we hang on to it, the more divisive it becomes. Because I was just thinking let me finish a second. There were a couple of things that I think when Alan was talking about, this idea of getting something out there. One problem it strikes me with the news group, and I sort of listening to you say it, is that on the one hand, we want to invite anybody in and say, look, come in, the water's warm, just give it a go. And at the other end of the community, we got people who said, nothing new to see here, because there's a sort of ennui, you're deep. And the question is, how do you keep both these groups on side without putting a bloody line down the middle? They say, but say to get past this line, you've got to be this tall, and that's the thing I fight against all the time.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
No, I'm sort of
I'm glad you highlighted it.
It's because Mark, weakness in us all, and in fact, it's a weakness in those of us who have.
No. It's a different thing.
Gently batting people away.
If we are running a watercolor class, no oil paints, please. That is not exclusionary, right? Exclusionary is if you paint in the wrong way. So when it comes to this, the future of text is based on the premise that if we don't improve how we think and communicate, and in this case through the medium primarily of text, as a species, we're not going to last very long. That's what it's based on.
I agree.
Yeah, it's
what I was trying to say was that one thing we want to train ourselves to keep away from is the sort of the hot button areas where there's an overlay that causes dissent in a community where we're trying to find assent.
Yeah, Mark, I agree with that. Mark,
it's very important.
Yes, Mark, hang on. Just on Alan's kind of question or point, what I'm trying to say is that it is not just about a love of text. It is also what I'm trying to foster in the community is a sense of urgency that we got to improve how we deal with it. And beyond that, it can be almost anything. If someone has a cool way, like Sam Winston, of doing it on paper, fantastic. But it has to be about how we better deal with that medium.
I'm going to suggest something just for the sake of argument. It has nothing to do with a personal belief, but going along with the analogy of watercolors versus oil, I think it would benefit the conversation or the newsletter or whatever to at least, so here's some arbitrary constraints to try out. And this is what I mean, because by bringing this up, you'll see how terribly open-ended this is. And this is one of the things. Are we talking about closed-ended or open-ended? What is closed-ended text? That's a paper, that's a PDF. What is open-ended? Texting. The article I was working on for Future of Text is actually called The Future of Texting, and it compares how text is so different than texting. And is it a different thing? But and so games are like open-ended and interactive. Well, maybe it's fair to say what we're talking about is actually not interactive. And why, just for devil's advocate's sake or argument's sake, why I think some constraints would be good, even though it does risk the minute you do that, as you say, Mark, becoming ennui filled. Oh, I've heard this before. But for instance, Rome, I think, started out being a tool for interception of one's own thought, and it very quickly became this place of distributed thought, and we're all talking to each other.
Oh my
and you
God,
can
I thought
take
you were talking
notes
about ancient Rome. I could not fit that in my
Oh,
head.
sorry.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it became all this other stuff, and I think Ian of Codex, which I still love Codex, caught that bug as well. And I still feel that Codex should be defined as, for things that have a corpus, Codex is your tool for, you know, if you want to use it that way, right? For things where you're working with other people and it's a live generated text, maybe there's other things. But I believe having sharp constraints like that can be useful. And maybe that works here, maybe it doesn't, but that's, you could see how it'd be so difficult if we say the future of text and someone goes, oh, texting, or improv, playing games, you know, what are we talking about?
Yeah, that is a really difficult thing. And as you may remember from the intro to the future of text, there's a section called myriads of texts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the text is a lot of different stuff.
Very, very well written, by the way.
Thank you. And I'm not the god of text. I've just taken an initiative, so I have to be really careful with the frame.
A god, not the god.
Depends on the anyway. So if someone like Tim Ingold, who wrote a book called The Line and stuff like that, he sent me an intellectually angry email in reply to being invited. He said, I've looked at your work. This is completely what I'm against. And he wrote, why? And I said, this is beautiful. Can I put your email in the book? And he said, fine, I'll write it. So he did, right? So having opposing viewpoints, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But there is a difference between an opposing viewpoint and an irrelevance. So I think that's what we're battling over here.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, right now I'm very grateful. There's been a lot of discussion on visual meta, very grateful for that. But I would be very happy, even for the spoken meetings, to say Mondays or Fridays or whatever is only on Notion kind of thinking graphs. Totally happy with that, right? So there are different ways we can segment it, as long as we have a way to do that. And if, let's say, Fridays, we are only allowed to dream or whatever, that would be fantastic. Or it could even be, you know, the 4 weeks in a month, that's 8 topics. We could even have them loop. I'd be super happy with that. Like one, no matter what, we're talking about.
I think more structure would be good for those talks.
Yeah. So if people want to be part of the handwritten poetry talk, come to that or discussion. Or if you're all interested in, you know, how to make a PDF more readable, come to that one.
Can I just throw one other consideration? Because I think it's really good. This point about irrelevances, I think, is very strong. And you're right, it's nuanced, but it's a nuance that's actually very important. But when I was thinking about in terms of, you know, groups and the sort of the difference between the knowledgeable and as it were the new entrant to that same group, is that one of the things also, and it's slightly a two tribes sort of thing, is there another irrelevance? Is someone turning up and say, hey, I've got this really cool technical framework, and they're sort of saying, but how does it relate to text? So is the text the outcome of your technology, or is the technology being used to do it? Because I see quite a lot of confusion, and I don't say this isn't by way of sort of strongly felt critique or something. It's just a confusion, and especially in the whole PKM area, I see this all the time. People saying, "I invented this thing," and my temptation is to say, without wishing to sound, you know, like the critic in the room, say, but "It's lovely, darling, but what does it do? How does it, how does it shift the needle?" And it often does, but trying to get what's interesting sometimes is it's actually shifting the needle without even the intent of the creator, who probably doesn't know what they've created.
I think that's a very good point.
That's what our community should pick up.
Yeah, but going back to some of the things and trying to wrap up, not that I don't have to rush off now, but starting an early wrap up,
sure.
Is imagine if we did at least, okay, let's say a month, we had 8 different topics that we try to stick to. And we say that's the way it's going to be every month for the foreseeable time. So at least people can put it in the calendar. We have iCal and all of that stuff. If you combine that with the newsletter and Twitter, so people can subscribe either way, then we can start doing the stories you talked about, Alan, when you have something. It can also be, here there's going to be a tech demo every Friday, second Friday, whatever that is. And some of them will be relatively irrelevant, Mark. That is a risk we are going to take. But the question would be, we invite people maybe in the community to write reviews of that software. So we try to make as many specific actions that then will go into a corpus, whether it's a website or later a book or whatever it is. But we try to make them engagement in the talk, but also outside. If you have an idea, it doesn't go into just a blog.
Irrelevance wasn't that I didn't raise the idea of irrelevance. I was referring to.
No. Yeah, I know.
So I'm also extremely conscious that irrelevance is in the eye of the beholder, especially with such a broad caucus. One thing that's actually really just thinking, as you're saying, having this idea or having a story, is one way. If we can get people to play along, is by taking a sort of subject or a term or something, is to get the engaged member of the community to sort of clothe it with references with a very small r and in the loosest non-academic sense of the word. So when I say X, what does X mean to you? And someone at the very academic end may give me a scale of references. That's fine. Somebody else says it makes me feel happy, and somebody else may, but the point is, thinking back to this artistic exercise, one of the things we should be able to look for is some of it will be familiar, some we may agree with or disagree with. What's really interesting is what's new, what just slipped in through the cracks, where somebody added something new to our understanding or our perception of what this thing means and how it relates to the overall subject.
Okay, I'm going to get on a soapbox for a moment in efforts to close things off as well. First, the purpose of the newsletter needs to be very clear. Mm-hmm. Is it to promote these open hours? And if you want to go this direction of topics, I would suggest maybe even calling them salons, because that's the hot shit right now. But is it to promote those? Is it to promote the book? Is it to promote the product? Is it to generate an audience? Right. So I don't need to answer that. Just moving on.
I can answer it with a quick question to you, actually. Who do you want to engage? What kind of person do you want to engage?
Okay, here's what I think. I think that there's a lot of groundswell interest in tools for thought, personal knowledge management right now. And I'm not interested in 70% of them, right? But I think that there is a large group of there that are not getting their needs met. And I do think that there's a place for future of text in there. And so I'll just go off on a rant. Here's a strong belief that I'm weekly holding weekly, whatever. I wonder if it's the opposite of here's the latest, newest thing, because we have so much of that. One thing that I like, or maybe that's hidden in the meaning of the future of text, is that it implies the past. And so if there was a newsletter, and keep in mind also my view about the newsletter is that the bar is set very low, that it is not a difficult thing to pull off. But if we entered this space and said, hey, we're interested in the future, but let's also, while we're doing this, let's talk about something from the past, because that'll give you an understanding of how, say, like Douglas Engelbart came to his conclusions, or how we wound up sending message packaging in the packets in the way that we did. I love that stuff. And then, but knowing, not just getting into the technical nuance, but saying, here's the actual core problem they're trying to solve: noise versus signal. Or let's go even earlier to papyrus versus paper, right? And then
Denise is in the book, right? Denise Schmant-Pesseret. She's the one who discovered the origins of writing in Samaria. And she's involved in the community. She's 90 and she answers her emails about this.
By the way, I've been loving Minds in Motion.
Yeah,
I can't believe she joined, and wow, what a read.
No, exactly. So just to riff a little bit, and not to go completely segue. So Denise, she had this idea, you had these little accounting tokens, right? And then you would put them inside a ball of clay. So that's kind of the seal. So then they decided, instead of having to open it up to check how many monkeys you owed or whatever it is, might as well put the tokens and imprint them on the outside so you can see what's
Right.
inside. It's like, hang on, then we don't need it inside, right? There's got to be millions of analogies for how we can use that today, like the tap back on the iOS keyboard.
Exactly.
Right? So how can you do more stuff? To have a session only on cuneiform and digital communication today would be very, very useful. To invite Barbara back and to invite other, let's say every X week, we invite one of the serious contributors to the book to do a 5-minute presentation, whatever, because we expect people to have read some of their work. To have a dialogue on only that would be absolutely fantastic. Because yes, there is a lot of past. There, we look at the future through the rear view mirror, all of that good stuff. Sure.
We forget the context. Yeah. Like, and even just hearing that, if the result was to get one person to think a little bit more like Edison, not in the evil ways, but in the ways that he was able to say, here's a thing, and all I have to do is add this other idea, and then boom, we have the phonograph. That would be incredible. And I feel like there isn't enough of that. We have too much amnesia, whatever. If we were able to thread, here's something new with here's something old, which is very similar to what I'm trying to do with the newsletter, but that I think would stimulate that part of this groundswell of interest in PKM, but not the sort of people that are interested in PKM and maybe like Bitcoin, people that are just like all about the new stuff, but rather, and I'm sure there's Bitcoin enthusiasts who are also like, I want to understand the core mechanisms. That's the kind of crowd,
So because it's an interesting thing there. It's because part of by drawing these threads up from the past without over venerating is sort of say that if I was to share this to you now, does this have a relevance? Because lots of things that are around us are just the effect of prior art. Thing about the width of railway wheels and Roman chariots and things. So the question is, but is it necessary? Because often because
okay, so you're saying the opposite equally. There's a lot we can throw away.
Is that there is a part of it, the pragmatist theory of constraints says, oh well, it's too difficult to change, therefore it must reside within it. So something that's really interesting to me about something like the author app is it's stepping outside some of those things that you got to do it this way. And so that's where I think the idea that you've raised is really interesting, because it isn't saying you got to know this to get on the right. So what, I don't know, writing on a line, what is point? Please explain, because
uppercase, lowercase, that kind of stuff.
Somebody else to actually say to you, no, seriously, what is the point? And when you find you can't explain what the point is, it's normally the means that thing no longer has the purpose. Or
you're going to love the early days of this book, Mark, when you get into it.
Really good.
Yeah.
But okay, so what I think we should do, based on this discussion, is tomorrow, and is it difficult for you tomorrow, Alan?
Let me check. Monday, and I will say that I'm getting into the part of the year. We had a little bit of a lull. This part of the year that's coming up is incredibly tense, unless, of course, I find another job. Glad this is being recorded. But this is typically the busiest part of the year coming up. So it does limit my ability to jump on calls, even though it is the highlight of my week.
So either no time or all the time in the world is what you're saying.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the flip side is I'll have all the time in the world.
Yes, yeah, that's nice of you to say. But one thing Bill Gates said that I think is really wise: people tend to overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years, right? So with that in mind, we're launching the book on the 9th of December because there's some literature thing I'm doing with Vint and Ismail. So the symposium is too quick for us to get everything done. But why don't we also plan this newsletter, this new thing, and say we launch it January. We announce it on the 9th of December, maybe, but we launch it so we have time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can spend Monday or Friday this week initiating with the community, whenever you're there, Alan, to say a rough idea we have is an email newsletter, but also that we theme these meetings, not just every other, but see what people actually get to. Think about the name, like a deep literacy salon, like I kind of put in here. I'm open to think about, because the future of text doesn't have to be everything.
Right.
If you want to do something more around literacy, I'm okay with being a part of that, and then holding the book and the manual symposium kind of in a box next to that with an overlap. I'm not a business in this. It's not like my branding, but it just needs to be clear for people how things relate, right?
Well, it's a simple concept to hold on to, so I think it's very good. The future of text is very good. I love that timeline, and I think that's possible. I also think that on the Salon side, an easy entry point. I just joined Intellect just to give it a shot, and because it seems like an interesting thing, right? And so I don't think it would be difficult at all. I think it'd be very popular, even if it's a separate thing. But to host a couple of Intellects about, refine some of these topics in these areas, not just the future of text. It could be the future of text part 1. I think that would be a great way to get an audience, possibly even a better way to get an audience than the newsletter.
So I had an Intellect, I think it was through Raphael suggesting it, and then my wife went through one of her very useful "let's cancel everything we don't need" moments. So I canceled it. But if you want to try something on there, I'm happy to do that. I find the Circle community to be completely useless. It cost me $75 a month.
Yeah, sorry, man. There's a name for this. I don't know what it is, but it feels like PTSD. But just too many apps, too many freaking apps.
Yeah, and also, who wants to write stuff that's going to disappear? That's why I'm such a holding on to the book as an end product, no matter what the interaction is.
Yeah.
So, but to host something there, but okay. I look forward to tomorrow if you can make it. If not, we started on Friday. No.
What time is it tomorrow?
4 to 5 UK, so it's the same as it ever was.
Okay.
Let me just have a look at the map here.
Yeah, we just changed to winter time. So no, we changed it. Sorry, end of the month we changed to winter time.
It's 15 minutes earlier than we were today, because we had to go see Peter Pan in Wimbledon with Edgar. A 2-person performance. Peter Pan is so sad. You remember?
Yeah, well.
They did this amazing thing. They had a rectangle on the ground that could be a tent and all kinds of things, and then he hung it up on the tree. Only one prop. This. And Peter Pan comes, sees the mom, and then leaves again.
It's that metaphor of every time X happens, a fairy dies.
But the thing that you can do in theater, you can't do in other medium, was amazing. So they had a mast. There was just 2 sticks that was in a basket for a boat, right?
Yeah.
When they took that and you saw them going to the window, you just already then, nothing had happened. You knew the window is closed. You're not going to see your mom.
Yeah.
By carrying a freaking cross across a stage, right? That kind of stuff.
Yeah,
there's got to be.
It's amazing. It's amazing how much it doesn't translate to mediums. I live in that exact gap. That's actually how I got into coding, is because I used to draw comics, and when I saw comics on the web, I was like, something's wrong here. I've got to be able to fix it. In order to fix it, I should learn to code.
That's
and
really,
I never fixed
it. That's really interesting, because for me, to write a column of text is so horrific. The layout is important. Move things, do this, all of that, right? In author, you can't do any of that, but that's for a different reason. But there's part of the future of text has to be to put that in there. When something changes, and my brother, who is the best theater director in the whole wide world, of course, he did a picture of Dorian Gray, and it was a simple stage, New York City. He was co-founder of the Scandinavian American Theater Company. So the thing is, in the story of Dorian Gray, people get killed, and there's the picture and everything. And then you have, as someone dies, they go backstage, but the whole thing is open. And there is a red theater standing in line type barrier separating backstage and front of stage, right?
Brilliant.
And it's so bizarre, because I thought that some of the actors who went to the back, they weren't very professional. They weren't just sitting there. They would move a little bit. And then I realized, oh my God, they are in his subconscious. That's the same character. That's the little movement. So the thing that happened that I will never forget was that, when he was about to look at the picture, the characters stand up and they go towards the rope. And you just, it was like my whole body froze. I realized when they lift that rope, he's going to go insane. Because that's the barrier, that little red rope that you walk past getting into the theater, right? Just, wow, mind-boggling. Text has to be allowed to do that.
Yeah. Oh, a similar note, if you haven't already seen it, I suspect you have because you're both more educated than I am. Sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning, I stumbled onto the BBC film adaptation of the play Copenhagen.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic. And really a lot of what
audio or visual?
What's that?
Audio or visual?
Visual. It's on Amazon Prime. I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Okay, yeah.
It stars Daniel Craig, and it's about Niels Bohr and Heisenberg when they met in 1941. Of course, when Heisenberg's a Nazi, and so it's a wild, but of course it's about the people, and so everything that we just talked about, sort of, I could find a point in that play that refers to it. You know what I mean? Like it decomposes the situation, the characters, and then their studies. It's beautiful.
I'm trying to find it here because we actually have a family here with us this weekend. She's Danish.
Oh, yeah. That'd be a great watch.
That would be an amusing intro for them to, is like, oh, here we go.
Actually, have you seen Alan Bennett's A Question of Attribution?
No. Which
is like a two-handed piece. And it was around the time that Crispin Blunt was outed as being the fifth or the sixth man in the sort of Soviet spy in UK. It happened to be the Queen's Keeper of Pictures, and it was all, he was sort of found out it was all hushed up because it was all too embarrassing. But
what's it called again?
It's called, I think it's called A Question of Attribution, and he basically, it's him. Well, the character is playing the curator telling the Queen about the basically the attribution of the picture, and it's all beautiful wheels within wheels because there's a layer of metaphor nested in this. I just remember seeing it on stage back in the happy time when I used to go and see plays much more regularly when I worked up in London. Yeah, I don't know if it's around, but that's nice. It's nicely layered writing and nice use of English too.
One of the things
I really want to join tomorrow for the first part. Can for the first part.
Fantastic. That's enough to introduce
this. That's fine. We can talk about you when you're gone, so that's cool.
Love it.
All right. Yeah, we have to wrap up in a bit, at least from this side. Sorry. But one thing I really want us to do, really, as a community, is redefine glossary. Okay? Yes. Because a lot of what we talked about today are different kinds of glossary issues.
Mm.
Right? Man. I had this beautiful notion of explicit links and implicit links. Implicit links must be allowed to be imposed in many different ways. And it has to be robust. It can't just be in a software demo on a website that'll rot in 2 years.
I can't tell you how many times I've like described something to someone that I'm passionate about, and they basically go, oh, so you mean a thesaurus? Or, oh, you mean the internet? You know, and it's like, if we could just make the argument that, hey, the thesaurus was great for its time. We need a new glossary. We need a new way to do this stuff. It's great as it is, but we need way more now, and that's an entry point for it. Would love it.
In front of you, Alan, I'm allowed to do this, and of course, my close friend Mark. Did you read the ACM article Vint wrote on my work? That's the cover story this month.
I started reading it.
So, you know, did you read that? Oh, you have? Okay, please go now and read the end.
Okay.
I'm waiting. I'll give you the link quickly.
Thank you.
Because it's so related to this. And this, of course, it's a bit grateful guy tooting his horn, but hang on a second. Okay, typed it in the message thing. Just the last paragraph. It says,
pulling it up.
These works of instances, blah, blah, blah. Skim through it until you get there, but isn't that just...
Conversational text, okay. Yeah, but isn't that just
right?
But it's like I get so frustrated that having been sort of pinged at rather
Wonderful.
less notice than I wanted to show microcosm of at Hypertext workshop this year. I keep thinking there's so much there that, again, if I could get these people to get off their arse and stop worrying about new is better and just show something that was done, and okay, it's done and it's past, but it actually was a working instance.
Mark, why don't you get a session with you and Wendy to present it?
Or Hugh or somebody.
Wendy,
it's a Malay computer sort of fraternity that new is better and everything else is yesterday's chip paper, and it's such a shame actually, because there's some really, it would make a really nice framework to hang some of these things on, not in terms of veneration of past art, as it were, but just to say, actually, we had a go at this before, and it wasn't so shabby, even within the constraints of its day.
We do need to look at that. Right. So yeah, no, sorry. The reason I say glossary, also addressing, there are some terms we need to. Maybe we should have sessions on just one topic like that we agree on ahead of time, because almost all of this is related to addressing.
Yeah,
right.
I suppose.
Or is the different pronunciation addressing?
Yeah, no, but I think that's important because actually linking has now become sort of, well, anything you click on a page sort of thing. So it's lost probably the closeness of meaning to addressing that you've mentioned. So I think that term is far better to talk about linking.
But guess what I'm doing on Wednesday?
What's that?
Hamilton live, West End. Alan, you live in New York, right?
Yeah, I actually had tickets to see Hamilton, and then a little thing called COVID came along.
Yeah, that happened here too, and it got pushed ahead. Do you have new dates?
No, I did just go see Hadestown. That was fantastic.
Oh yeah, that's also a thing.
It's the thing.
That's supposed to be good.
I like the album more, but that's okay. That's because anyway. No, I don't have tickets yet for Hamilton. I need to.
The greatest thing, my little 4.5 no, it's not even 4.5. He said the other day he really wants to go see Hamilton. And I said, okay, if you do your homework really well and you learn all the words and all the letters and all the writing by Christmas, and Mrs. Fleming says you did your homework really well, I will take you to see Hamilton live.
Brilliant move.
Because it's actually, at his age, he's allowed in if he's got an older person there. But it's so bizarre. Lin-Manuel, he's done so much stuff that I just couldn't give a monkeys about. And then he's done this one piece of work that it just is my soul, literally.
Yeah. It really, same here. I remember I escaped the country over New Year's Eve one year when I stumbled onto it, and I just listened to the soundtrack, and that's all I listened to while I was in Mexico. It was just.
Oh my God, that must have been a thing to not have the visuals, but to have that and in a foreign place.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was wonderful.
My God, I can see a movie. I can, that's very textual. Anyway, this is all very exciting. We will go to a larger community along the whole deeper literacy tools for thought thing. We will connect it somehow with these things, and we will make it explicitly a safe place for sharing, which a lot of these things are not. That's my experience anyway. And
another good thing about the January timeline is that we could draft together several months of newsletters that are just in the backlog.
Yeah, and we can invite people up front so that even the recordings do become worthwhile podcast type things.
That's good.
Actually, doing a couple in advance is really useful because it gives us a triage and a reference to see if the sort of scope and tenor is right.
And we do have 100% sure Vint will be there. He's been so supportive; it's insane.
That's wonderful.
I'm writing.
I told my girlfriend that Surf said my name. I think it was like a couple meetings ago. I was just like, wow.
He is such a beneficent angel for us. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
A final thing before I forget. I do still subscribe to The Atlantic, formerly Atlantic Monthly. And the letter that Vince sent to Tim Cook, I'm going to reformulate a little bit, write a new, because we get this email, which is really readable, brief stuff. Actually, it's kind of similar to, in some, and whatever. Anyway, it says at the top, you get this because you're a subscriber. To get in touch with us, reply. It's a really friendly way of readers' letters and dialogue with them rather than go on the website and hunt for some nonsense, right? So I'm going to start the email with, as you of course know, in 1945, you published one of the most seminal pieces in the history of knowledge. This was, as you may not know, this was a huge inspiration for Doug Engelbart, which is only 50% true, but anyway, it sounds good to them. And then I'll say,
and an even greater inspiration to Babbage. No, kidding. Go ahead.
Yes. But then I want to find a way to say what we are working on here with Vint and Underdog and all that stuff is to change what text is. And this is about getting something with them. You know, I'm sure Vint and Ismail would be interviewed if they were interested. But imagine if a magazine had visual meta too. And as we have discussed a few times, imagine if web pages had it. Right? Most web pages don't even have a publication date.
There's a whole, I could lead a talk on what the future of ebooks could be. Because it's and the Atlantic actually just published an article about ebooks are abhorrent. That's a fun read. But yeah, I agree that that does remind me though, and I know we're closing out here. The thing that is still the challenge is, I'm sure people have this question. Oh, the future of text, that's interesting. What is it? There's yet to be a thing that you can tell someone, this is what our, you know, how do I put this? It's still hard to visualize. It's still, if you get it, you get it, but then otherwise you just look at it and you go, okay, this is a glossary. You know what I mean? Like there's still something missing there. And I think by the time January comes around, that needs to be as hard as a nugget of gold.
And
you know?
It is part of it, the fact that it's not the future in text, and as in there's going to be a text extinction event like the dinosaurs.
Exactly.
But more that, you know, actually, if you don't look after stuff, it just falls to bits.
I've read that piece in the Atlantic.
And you know, bad things happen, even if unintentionally. I mean, I think that, in a sense, to me, that's part of the heart of the message. It's not about bad actors or anything like that. It's just inattention.
From my side, in closing, just trying to brush up of some general knowledge because, you know, I have a son.
You're fading away gently, even as you speak.
Oh, a delight. It's getting anyway. So in this book Metazoa that we discussed, the way that they describe molecular water as being so turbulent, it's such a great reminder that even what we think is stable life is really, really messy. Knowledge is really, really messy. And the quickest thing most nerds do is try to do taxonomy, and it's boring. Even Confucius said, if I was in charge, the first thing I do is make sure things are named correctly. The most naive sentence ever said, right? It's almost as bad as the T word, truth.
Well,
so, you know, I think one of the things in the community to really look at is how do we deal with the fact that it's all messy and keep going? Anyway.
Yeah. And
why did my screen get so dark? The room didn't get that much.
Yeah, taxonomy and hierarchies are, and there goeth the data viz community in the same ways. Geez, don't give me another tree map, you know, dressed up another way. Show me something interesting.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that, but I'll save it for later.
Quickly. What?
What's that? What are my thoughts?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I the book, City is Not a Computer touches on this as well as a dozen others, but it's like, imagine if we had this, but it was a naturally occurring item, you know, like a piece of film that we just found in the field, and we never had to go through the idea of turning things into ones and zeros. How would we be communicating? Would it be a richer way? And in a way, we're trying to get back to that. A lot of what this problem has come from is the capability that computation has given us. It's stripped away all the stuff that it considers mud, the things that don't neatly fit into a category, and we're trying to bring that back up. And it's exceptionally difficult because we don't even have the right words to describe it. But books like A City Is Not a Computer really helps sort of flesh out what that space is and why it's a problem.
Yeah, ramming, your reality into my template, and then just cutting off the nasty bits that don't fit. That is the modern world.
It's nice that you said that, but I don't agree.
Great.
Because looking at the history of citations, because I basically want to find out why they're such a mess, and academic documents, it's always been like this. It's very, very recent, almost like the last 20, 30 years, where people have thought kind of digitally. However, trying to organize the world into some kind of a list almost is as old as academia itself.
Yes, but there's also the element that I also slightly overlooked in the way it was almost this sort of, it was almost like an apprenticeship,
Yes, that's
and we forget that at our peril, because it gives false provenance to things that perhaps don't deserve it.
There's a phenomenon that also doesn't have a word, but it happens all the time. And I'll give you a clear example. If you use Slack, there's a time where Slack was a really good idea, and it was meant for teams internally. And then it blew up and became meetups and public groups. And then it became entire companies were on Slack, like massive enterprises. And so what was a good idea within a certain context got popular, moved into other contexts, and then became abysmal, worse than email in a lot of ways. And that's, so annotation worked within the confines of the technology at the time. New technology came along, opened the doors of what could be done, and now it's a whole mess.
Well, I mean, another really good example of that is it's like, sadly, all the British forces at the moment are paid on something which was basically a manufacturing ERP system. So, people come into work, they clock in there. So people who suddenly get sent to the far side of the world to do something in a jungle where there aren't telephones and computers and things. And they wonder why people's pay is, something like 9 months out of date.
This is a great
a living hand to mouth, because having paid for that work, because the stupid system, no one ever considered it was completely unfit for purpose. But it speaks to the same idiocy.
But this is a great way to end the conversation today, because that's how innovation works. Rivers will go like this, and they will find local maxima, and then they will go back, and so Slack did it, and then it hit it, and
on that note, Carlotta Perez, Technological Revolutions is the book to read.
Who's?
Carlotta Perez, Technological Revolutions. It's a Bible.
I can look it up.
I'm using Liquid to buy it within. No, God.
Oh, that's cool.
No, done. Bought. It'll be here tomorrow.
All right.
I joined the stack of books. It's not that high. It's only about this right now. So
I've got way too many of them. Yeah, my Sundoku overfloweth.
But anyway, so this is all good. We are looking to do useful stuff. And Alan, you are intelligently trying to widen the discussion, which is important. We cannot afford to be insular. I can say that I'm in Britain. Insular means being on an island. We can't be like that, right? We need to open up, and we need to open up in an engaging way. We have to do the PR now. I've started doing it by interviewing former presidents for the book via Ismail. It's partly for them to tell us. It's partly for them to be told that this is an issue.
Great. Yep. I can't wait to read those.
So till tomorrow, guys.
All right.
Really nice to talk.
Pleasure as always.
Out of hours. See you later. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.